"You're not more beautiful than her," the Millionaire CEO said. 2 years later, he was begging at her feet. Ariana Wells did, because the night her world shattered wasn't the night Damon left her. It was the night she realized someone else had been watching, someone who knew every secret she tried to bury, someone who waited 5 long years to return with a truth more dangerous than Damon's betrayal. And when that truth knocks on her door, it carries a name Ariana thought she'd never hear again, and a warning that could destroy everything she rebuilt. "Hey, beautiful souls, I'm your storyteller, James. Let me ask you something. Have you ever lived a moment so painful you prayed no one would ever find out?" Ariana Wells would never forget 3 things about that night. The first was the storm outside, how it battered the penthouse windows as if the world itself were rebelling against her pain. Lightning split the sky, casting sharp, fractured shadows across the marble floors, highlighting every crack in her heart. The rain pelted down, relentless, mirroring the violence of her emotions as fear, heartbreak, and disbelief tangled together. The second was the glint of Damon Blackwood's watch. The polished steel caught the light as he gestured toward her, drawing attention not to her beauty or her life, but to her body, the very body that carried the evidence of their love. 8 months pregnant, she had carried him, their child and their shared dreams, and yet in one cruel motion, he reduced her to something disposable, something inconvenient. The third was her own heartbeat, heavy and bruising in her chest, thudding like a war drum that refused to be silenced. Each pulse reminded her that she was alive, but it also reminded her of how fragile life could be, how quickly it could be ripped away, how a single person could shatter everything she had believed about love, loyalty, and safety. She had climbed these stairs countless times before, hand in hand with Damon, laughing, dreaming, feeling untouchable. Tonight, each step felt like a mile, each breath a struggle against the weight of betrayal pressing down on her. Her body, stretched and transformed by life itself, now felt alien to her, and yet it was a testament to her strength, a strength he had no right to diminish. "You're not more beautiful than her, Ariana. Not anymore. I have an image to protect," Damon said, his words slicing through the room, precise and deliberate. The statement landed like a fist to her chest. She pressed her hands against the swell of her belly instinctively, as though shielding their child might also shield her heart from breaking. Tears stung her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. Pride, thin and delicate as glass, was all she had left to stand on. She whispered under her breath, a vow that trembled with fury and heartbreak that he would regret this cruelty. Damon's eyes were cold, calculating, his expression carefully neutral, as if he were making a business decision instead of condemning the woman he claimed to love. He turned and looked out over the city, the skyline, a glittering, indifferent witness to the destruction he had caused. His attention was elsewhere, indifferent to the storm raging within the room, or within Ariana herself. Every memory she had of him twisted sharply in her mind. The laughter, the promises, the touch that once felt like home, all now weapons in a battle she hadn't agreed to fight. The life they had imagined together, the family she had envisioned, crumbled in the harshest way possible, through cold calculation and selfish vanity. Ariana's knees threatened to give way, her breaths coming in short, panicked bursts as the first pang of labor struck. She pressed her hand against the cool marble of the railing, trying to anchor herself, trying to find some balance in a world that had tipped violently. Her belly tightened, the life inside her reminding her of the strength she needed, even as her own body threatened betrayal. She focused on the child, imagining little fingers, tiny eyes, a heartbeat she could feel against her chest. The thought sparked something fierce, something unrelenting in her soul. She would survive this night. She would endure this storm. She would protect her child. That thought alone kept her upright as the next wave of pain washed over her. The penthouse, once a sanctuary of elegance and safety, now felt like a cage, each polished surface reflecting the betrayal back at her. Chandeliers shimmered with cruel indifference, marble floors gleaming coldly beneath her shaking feet. This was not the home she had imagined sharing with Damon. This was a battlefield, and she had been ambushed. His words echoed in her ears. "You've lost what made you remarkable," he added, his voice low, deliberate, every syllable a dagger. "You were someone to be seen. Now, you're invisible, just like the rest of them." Ariana pressed her hand to her mouth, biting back a sob that threatened to erupt. Her fingers trembled as she rested them on her swollen belly, feeling the life that had made her both vulnerable and invincible. She whispered softly, almost a prayer, "You'll see who I am without you. You will regret this, Damon Blackwood." Pain seared through her again, sharper this time, an involuntary reminder of the fragility of her current existence. She pressed herself against the railing for support, each step toward the elevator a test of willpower. Sweat trickled down her brow, her body trembling, and yet her resolve hardened. She would not allow herself to break in front of him, not tonight, not ever. Damon's smirk was a cruel punctuation in the room, a reminder that his concern lay only with his own comfort and desires. He had already chosen someone else over her, someone he deemed more worthy, more beautiful, more convenient. And she, standing tall despite the storm inside her, was cast aside like yesterday's paper, discarded and deemed irrelevant. The elevator doors slid closed with a soft chime, but the sound was almost deafening to Ariana. Her body betrayed her completely at that moment. A sudden scorching pain tore through her abdomen, making her gasp and clutch at the polished railing. Her knees buckled as if marble itself had conspired against her. The warm, undeniable gush confirmed her worst fear. Her water had broken. She was alone, completely and terrifyingly alone. Panic clawed at her chest, but she swallowed it down, letting only resolve shine through the tremor in her limbs. She pressed her hands against the floor, trying to steady herself as every nerve in her body screamed in protest. The storm outside seemed to echo her pain, thunder rolling across the city like a chorus of rage and indifference. Ariana's mind raced with fragmented thoughts of love betrayed, of promises shattered, of the future she feared might never exist. She pressed her face to the cold marble, feeling the smooth, unyielding surface beneath her, grounding her in reality even as her body rebelled. Each breath was a labor in itself, each heartbeat a testament to the life she carried and the life she would now fiercely protect. She thought of Damon, standing just steps away, phone in hand, utterly indifferent to the storm she was enduring. He had chosen her absence, the presence of another, over the woman who had given him everything. Rage and grief surged, coiling in her chest with the force of a tempest. Yet, beneath it all, a spark of defiance ignited. She would survive. She would endure. She would rise from this betrayal, stronger than she had ever been before. The world seemed to blur around her. The rain outside, the gleaming city lights, the coldness of the marble floor, all fading into insignificance compared to the fierce determination rising within her. Every muscle ached, every nerve burned, and yet she pressed onward, clutching herself as if her very soul were wrapped around her unborn child. Her vision swam with tears, but they did not fall. She would not allow herself the weakness of despair, not here, not now. She focused on the life growing inside her, imagining the tiny hands, the fragile chest, rising and falling, the spark of existence that demanded she fight, demanded she endure. Pain clawed at her again, relentless, each contraction a reminder that survival was never easy. She gritted her teeth and pressed her back against the railing, breathing in short, shallow gasps, finding rhythm where none existed. She whispered a vow, words nearly lost to the roar of the storm outside. "I will survive. I will protect my child. You will regret underestimating me. Damon's presence loomed, yet he did not move to help. His smirk remained, confident, arrogant, uncaring. He was the man she had loved, the father of her child, and yet he was absent in the only way that mattered. She pressed herself lower, grounding herself, preparing for the next wave of pain that would not wait for kindness or assistance. The rain lashed harder, wind battering the windows as if mocking the helplessness she felt. She gritted her teeth, tears finally sliding down her cheeks in quiet, angry streams, mixing with sweat, mixing with the water that had broken hours too early. Her body shook, her mind raced, but inside the fire of survival blazed fiercely. Ariana knew in that moment that she could not rely on Damon, could not expect mercy, could not hope for kindness. She was alone, but she was strong, stronger than the betrayal, stronger than the pain, stronger than the storm itself. And as the first pang of real labor overtook her again, she felt the tiny flutter of life within, reminding her why she must endure. The elevator doors remained a distant promise of escape, and yet she could not reach them. She pressed herself against the marble floor, gasping, trembling, every part of her aching, every part of her alive, every part of her unbroken, despite the cruel indifference of the man she had once called love. She whispered again, a vow louder this time, a roar that only she could hear above the storm. I will rise, I will survive, I will prove my worth. You will regret this, Damon Blackwood. The room seemed to hold its breath, the city itself quieting for a moment, as if waiting to see if she could endure. And in that heartbeat, in that terrifying, fragile instant, the life within her stirred, tiny fingers moving, tiny heart beating, tiny proof of resilience. As Ariana collapsed fully to the marble floor, trembling and gasping with pain, Damon lifted his phone, not to help her, not to call an ambulance, but to answer a call from the woman he had chosen over her, leaving Ariana utterly alone at the precipice of her greatest battle yet. The harsh hospital lights beat down on Ariana Wells like a spotlight on her humiliation, each glare cutting through the storm that still raged inside her. She could feel the sterile chill of the room biting through her sweat-soaked skin. Every beep, every hiss of machinery, every shuffle of footsteps in the hallway reminded her that she was utterly alone. No familiar hand rested on hers, no gentle whisper soothed the terror that gripped her chest. Her breathing was jagged, uneven, pulled taut between panic and sheer determination. The first pangs had come violently at the penthouse, and now, hours later, they had become relentless. A wave of pain she could not escape. She pressed her palms against the sheets, clinging to the small comfort of pressure against her skin, willing herself not to scream, not to falter, not to give Damon the satisfaction of seeing her break. And then Evelyn Hart appeared, a woman who walked with the quiet confidence of someone who had seen suffering and survived it, someone who knew how to hold space for despair without judgment. Her eyes, warm and kind, met Ariana's and seemed to whisper the words Ariana so desperately needed. "You're not alone." Those words, simple as they were, struck a chord deep inside her. A fragile thread of hope wove itself through the terror. Ariana clutched it like a lifeline, letting Evelyn guide her through the next contraction, her hand firm, her voice steady. Step by step, breath by breath, Ariana moved through the storm of pain. Time lost all meaning. Minutes stretched like hours, each contraction a mountain she had to climb. Sweat ran down her temples, mixing with the tears she refused to let fall. She focused only on the small miracle inside her, the life whose tiny heartbeat she could already feel thrumming against her chest. Gunnar. The name came unbidden, whispered aloud, a vow she made to the child she would hold soon enough. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the first cry broke through the sterile room. Ariana's body shuddered, her knees nearly giving way again, But Evelyn was there, supporting, guiding, whispering words of encouragement that became the anchor in the chaos. The tiny life was placed on her chest, and Ariana felt a surge of love so intense it burned. Gunnar Wells, her son, her anchor, her reason to survive. She pressed her face against his soft head, inhaling the faint scent of new life. She promised silently, with every ounce of her being, that he would never feel the abandonment, the cruelty, the betrayal she had endured. Not by Damon, not by the world. He would know nothing but love from her. Then her phone buzzed, breaking the sacred cocoon of their moment. The screen lit up with Damon's name. Her heart tightened, a reflexive squeeze of anger, fear, and disbelief. She opened the message. "Send me the bill. I'll handle it." Ariana stared at the words, her fingers trembling, a fire igniting in her chest. Without typing a response, she deleted the message. Silence. That silence became her shield, her first act of defiance. Damon's money, his hollow gestures, could never touch her now. She would build everything with her own hands, her own mind, her own courage. Evelyn checked the monitors and the baby, her calm professionalism a balm. "He's perfect," she said softly. "And so are you, even after everything." Ariana nodded, letting the praise sink in, letting it bolster the fragile armor she had begun to forge around her heart. The hours blurred as she learned the rhythm of motherhood, the tiny sighs, the careful holding, the impossibly delicate body of her son that depended entirely on her. Gunnar slept against her chest, a fragile bundle of perfection, and yet Ariana knew she could not falter. She would need to be both mother and protector, both shield and sword. Every sound in the hospital seemed amplified, the squeak of shoes in the hallway, the hum of fluorescent lights, the faint murmur of voices beyond the doors. She remained hyper-aware, expecting Damon to appear, expecting confrontation. But he did not. His absence, as always, was a quiet cruelty. Then a shadow flickered across the threshold, a nurse hurrying down the hall with urgency written across her face. "Ms. Wells," she said breathlessly, "there's something you need to know. Damon, he's filed a legal notice demanding a DNA test before acknowledging the baby." Ariana's stomach dropped. Rage and disbelief collided with exhaustion. He could not possibly think that she would let him control the story of her life, of her child, even from a distance. She clenched her fists, nails biting into her palms, and the fire inside her roared to life. Evelyn's hand on her shoulder grounded her. "Whatever happens, you are in control now," she said gently. "You decide the rules. You hold the power." Ariana's mind raced, each thought sharper than the last. She imagined the courtrooms, the papers, the endless attempts Damon would make to assert dominance over a life that was already hers to protect. She would fight, yes, but on her terms, not his. The small hospital room became her battlefield. Each movement, each breath, each tiny cry from Gunnar became her ammunition. She would endure, she would survive, and she would rise. Damon's arrogance would not define her son's life. Damon's absence, cruelty, and disdain would not dictate her path. Sleep was impossible, but she did not care. Gunnar needed her, and she had no intention of letting him feel the sting of rejection, the shadow of abandonment, the chill of betrayal. Her body ached, her spirit burned, but every beat of her son's heart against hers reminded her of purpose. She imagined the months ahead, sleepless nights, teething, first steps, first words, all milestones she would witness, all victories she would claim without Damon's interference. She would nurture strength in Gunnar, resilience, and dignity, lessons Damon could never teach. The storm outside had not lessened. The wind howled like a beast demanding justice. Ariana smiled faintly, despite the fatigue. The storm within her was different now. It was a forge, burning, shaping her resolve into something unbreakable. Her thoughts wandered briefly to her own future, her career, her identity beyond motherhood, beyond betrayal. She imagined herself building a life so strong that no one could undermine it. Every plan, every idea, every spark of creativity and ambition became a promise she made silently to herself and to Gunnar. She rocked her son gently, whispering his name, feeling the tiny hands grasping instinctively at her fingers. Each motion, each sigh, each flutter of life strengthened her determination. Damon would see. One day he would witness the woman he discarded rise higher than he ever imagined possible. The night stretched on, and Ariana did not sleep, nor did she falter. She held Gunnar close, let the storm rage outside, let the world judge, let Damon believe he had power. She knew better. She held the truth, her strength, her love, her child. These were hers alone. As Ariana adjusted Gunnar in her arms, exhausted but resolute, a hospital administrator appeared at the door, holding a stack of legal documents. The words on the papers made her blood run cold. Damon Blackwood had escalated matters further, filing for temporary custody until the DNA test could be completed, threatening to take her son from her arms before she had even claimed her first victory. Ariana Wells returned to her small apartment with Gunnar pressed close to her chest, the weight of exhaustion settling into her bones like lead. Every step across the narrow hallway reminded her that the luxury she had once known was gone, replaced by cramped spaces, peeling paint, and the hum of the city outside her window. And yet, despite the starkness, she felt a flicker of hope. This was her sanctuary now, no matter how humble, no matter how imperfect. The first nights were the hardest. Gunnar cried incessantly, tiny fists clenching at her chest, his fragile body demanding her attention every hour, every minute. Ariana learned to move through the haze of sleeplessness, each moment a lesson in endurance. She whispered promises to him in the quiet hours, soft words that carried the weight of determination. I will protect you. I will keep you safe. You will never feel the pain I felt tonight. Her apartment, though small, became a workshop for resilience. On the tiny kitchen table she laid out notebooks, pens, her laptop, and scraps of inspiration. Every nap Gunnar took became an opportunity to reclaim a piece of herself, to write proposals, draft campaigns, and brainstorm concepts that celebrated women like her, women who had been discarded, underestimated, or overlooked. She remembered Damon's callousness vividly, the sting of rejection and betrayal. Each memory became fuel. Every hour spent crying in the night was converted into a quiet determination that no one, not even Damon, could erase her worth. The fire inside her, once stoked by anger, now burned with purpose. Hiring Maria had been a decision born of necessity, but quickly it became a gift. The young college student brought energy, optimism, and a gentle spirit into Ariana's life. Maria understood the pressures of juggling work, ambition, and care. She quickly became more than a nanny. She was a confidant, a supporter, and someone who reminded Ariana that even amidst hardship, there was connection, there was family beyond blood. Ariana spent hours explaining the delicate balance of work and motherhood to Maria, teaching her how to manage clients, deadlines, and presentations while tending to a newborn's needs. Maria absorbed everything with a diligence and respect that made Ariana's heart swell. She realized that she could build a life not just for herself, but for Gunnar, that included love, support, and guidance from chosen family, each rejection from potential clients or brands was a blow, sharp and stinging, yet Ariana turned each into fuel. She reminded herself that every no was a step closer to a yes, every closed door an opportunity to find a better one. She became disciplined, working late into the night, drafting campaigns that celebrated authenticity, resilience, and self-worth, values she had learned the hard way. The apartment walls, once bare and unwelcoming, slowly filled with the symbols of her determination. Vision boards, sketches, sticky notes covered in ideas, deadlines, and reminders. She painted affirmations on scraps of paper, tacking them to the fridge, whispering them to herself when fatigue threatened to drag her under. You are enough. You are strong. You will rise. Despite the chaos, there were moments of quiet beauty. The soft weight of Gunner's head against her chest during his naps, the rhythm of his breathing, the gentle tug of his tiny hands on her fingers. These moments reminded her that everything she endured, everything she fought through, was not for herself alone. She was shaping a life for him, one where he would feel love, security, and pride in his mother's strength. Ariana's confidence grew slowly but steadily. Each day brought a new challenge, a new obstacle, a new test of her resolve. And each day she passed those tests, sometimes barely, sometimes with a surge of unexpected triumph. She learned to celebrate small victories, a client approving a concept, a successful pitch, Gunnar taking his first unsteady steps in the living room, proof that perseverance always bore fruit. She maintained strict discipline, balancing work, motherhood, and emotional recovery with near-militant precision. Early mornings were spent drafting campaigns, afternoons were for meetings and calls, evenings were reserved for Gunnar and Maria, sharing stories, teaching, learning, and laughing despite the fatigue etched into her face. The world outside the apartment seemed indifferent, often cruel. Damon's shadow loomed like a phantom in her mind, a constant reminder of betrayal and loss. But Ariana refused to let his memory poison her journey. Every campaign she crafted was a defiance of his cruelty, a declaration that her life, her talent, her worth were hers to claim. Late nights were hardest. Gunnar's cries could pierce the weariness like knives. Ariana would cradle him, shushing, singing softly, rocking him gently, feeling the ache in her body and heart, yet finding strength in the tiny life she held. Each cry reminded her of the stakes. Each breath reminded her that she had survived the night of betrayal and was forging a new dawn. She began to document her process, her thoughts, her dreams, and her setbacks. Journals filled with ideas, drafts, reflections on motherhood, and notes on how to reclaim her life became sacred artifacts of her perseverance. Even when exhaustion threatened, she wrote, scribbled, and planned, always moving forward. Ariana learned the power of silence as well. Damon's texts, calls, and veiled threats were ignored. Her replies, if any, were calculated and measured. She discovered a strength she had never tapped before. The power to let go, the power to rise above, the power to protect her son from toxicity without sacrificing her own growth. The bond with Maria deepened. They shared meals, laughter, and quiet confessions. Maria reminded Ariana that even in isolation, connection was possible, and that chosen family could be as vital as blood. Together, they transformed the small apartment into a hive of creativity, nurturing, and relentless ambition. Days bled into weeks, weeks into months. Ariana's campaigns began attracting attention online, small at first, whispers of admiration and recognition. Clients reached out tentatively, drawn to the authenticity and raw power in her work. Each positive response was a step toward independence, a step away from Damon's shadow. Ariana celebrated small victories privately, often late at night, Gunnar asleep in her arms. She let herself feel pride in her ability to endure, to build, to create. She whispered to him, "One day you'll see, Gunnar. One day you'll know that no storm, no betrayal, no cruel hand can keep us from rising." Evenings often found Ariana staring out the apartment window at the city skyline, lights flickering like distant stars, imagining the empire she would build, the reputation she would earn, and the life she would shape for her son. Free from Damon, free from fear, free from the past. Financial challenges were constant. Every freelance payment felt like a small triumph. Yet she kept meticulous records, budgeting carefully, saving every possible dollar. The weight of responsibility was immense, but Ariana embraced it. The child on her chest was not just her son. He was her mission, her reason, her accountability, and her ultimate reward. Each rejection letter from brands, each overlooked proposal, became motivation rather than defeat. She learned the rhythm of persistence, the cadence of endurance. With every "no," she whispered to herself, "Not yet. Soon. I will rise and they will see." Through it all, Gunnar remained her center. The tiny heartbeat she had fought to protect now guided her choices, her decisions, and her dreams. His laughter, his first coos, the curl of his tiny fingers around hers became proof that the future was hers to shape, proof that resilience could create beauty even from brokenness. She began to envision a campaign, one that would encapsulate everything she had endured: strength, authenticity, resilience, motherhood, survival. A campaign that would speak to women like her, women who had been abandoned, betrayed, underestimated, yet refused to be broken. Even the smallest moments, Gunn hugging her hand, Maria's encouraging words, the quiet hum of the city outside, were catalysts. Each moment reminded Ariana that she had survived the impossible night, that she had carried her son to safety, and that the next stage of life was hers to conquer. Ariana's mind was a whirlwind of strategy, creativity, and purpose. Ideas flowed relentlessly, campaigns taking shape, concepts refining themselves in the crucible of her determination. She realized that the storm outside the penthouse had mirrored the storm within her, but now she controlled the weather. She stopped letting fear dictate her choices. Every decision, from hiring Maria to taking freelance clients, was an assertion of independence. Every moment spent nurturing Gunnar was a testament to her strength, her unbreakable spirit, and her commitment to rewriting the narrative Damon had tried to control. Even as exhaustion threatened, even as fatigue gnawed at her, she persisted. Each night was a battle, each day a small victory. She had learned that survival alone was not enough. She needed to thrive, to build, to create a legacy that no one could tarnish. Her apartment, once a place of temporary refuge, had transformed into a headquarters of resilience. Every notebook, laptop, sticky note, and vision board represented her rise from ashes. Every breath and step a declaration that she would not be invisible, forgotten, or abandoned again. Late one evening, Ariana's laptop pinged with an incoming alert. Her heart raced as she opened it. Damon's team had leaked a corporate scandal, threatening to ruin the fragile beginnings of her career. But as she scrolled through the files, her eyes widened, a sharp smile curling across her face. She realized she could turn their attack into an advantage, a calculated move that would mark the first step in reclaiming not just her dignity, but her power. Ariana Wells stared at her laptop, barely blinking as the numbers climbed higher with every passing second. The campaign she had poured her soul into, real bodies, real victory, was igniting the internet. Each share, each comment, each note of appreciation felt like a small hammer striking against the cage Damon had built around her life. Her face was calm, her eyes focused, but inside her heart raced with disbelief and triumph. Months of sleepless nights, relentless work, and tireless care for Gunnar had culminated in this very moment. The campaign was not just a marketing success, it was a declaration, a statement that she was here, unbroken, unbowed, and unstoppable. Her phone vibrated constantly, emails flooding in from major brands, agencies, and clients who wanted a piece of her vision, her voice, her creativity. She leaned back, cradling Gunnar in her arms as he slept peacefully, unaware that his mother's fight had become a roar that reverberated far beyond the walls of their modest apartment. Ariana whispered softly to him. "We did it, baby. This is just the beginning. You'll see, Mommy's going to show the world our strength." Every project she had taken, every late night she had endured while Damon's shadow loomed over her past, had been a stepping stone. Each rejection, each insult, each reminder that she had been discarded now became fuel. She smiled faintly at the thought of how blind Damon had been, how sure he was that her silence would remain permanent, that her power would remain hidden. The gala had been months in the making, an industry networking event she attended reluctantly, only because a major client insisted. She wore a sleek, elegant dress that accentuated her natural beauty and confidence. Her brown skin glowed under the soft lights, her eyes sharp with awareness, her posture radiating a calm authority. Every step she took across the polished marble floors was a reminder that she was no longer invisible. And then she saw him, Damon Blackwood, the man who had shattered her life, who had abandoned her in the darkest moment, now stood across the room. He looked exactly as she remembered, handsome, confident, polished. But something had shifted. His eyes widened, a flicker of recognition mixed with shock, as he observed the woman he had discarded not just surviving, but thriving. The room seemed to blur around her. Ariana held her head high, allowing a small, polite smile to touch her lips. She did not rush to confront him. She did not let him see the storm that churned beneath the surface. She allowed the silence to speak for her. Every eye that followed her, every whisper that trailed behind her, became part of her armor. She was no longer the frightened, abandoned woman who had walked alone through a penthouse hallway months ago. Damon approached cautiously, his steps calculated, trying to mask surprise with charm, but he could not hide the momentary loss of composure. He extended a hand, a gesture of civility, but Ariana did not rush to meet it. She allowed the hesitation, the tension to linger, a subtle assertion of control. Her eyes met his with clarity and calm authority. "Good evening, Damon," she said softly, her voice smooth, measured, but carrying the unmistakable weight of triumph. Her smile never softened into warmth, never betrayed the fire that burned beneath her composed exterior. "Evening, Ariana," he murmured, his usual arrogance replaced with something else, uncertainty, disbelief, even a hint of fear. He glanced around as if searching for support, for someone to validate that the woman he had discarded was the same one standing before him, commanding attention effortlessly. The gala continued, glittering chandeliers above, industry titans milling about, yet Ariana walked through the crowd as if the entire space had been carved to honor her presence. Every handshake, every nod, every compliment she received was a victory, a recognition that she had reclaimed her life, her voice, her worth. Behind the poised exterior, Ariana felt the familiar pulse of adrenaline. This was power, but it was earned. It was the result of relentless perseverance, of nights spent feeding her child with one hand and typing proposals with the other. Every obstacle had been met with determination, every setback turned into strategy. Her phone vibrated again, but she ignored it, letting the night unfold organically. She allowed herself to revel, silently, in the realization that she had outgrown the chains Damon had placed upon her. Every whispered comparison, every casual dismissal he had once delivered, now echoed hollowly in the distance. She was untouchable because she had defined herself. The whispers in the room grew louder. People noticed the shift, the confident energy she carried, the authenticity that radiated from her work, her voice, her presence. Industry veterans nodded appreciatively, newcomers stared with admiration, and for the first time in a long time, Ariana felt the heady thrill of being recognized, not for what she had once been, but for what she had fought to become. Damon attempted conversation again, leaning slightly closer, lowering his voice in an effort to reclaim some form of dominance. But Ariana remained unmoved, answering politely, strategically, never letting him see the depth of her inner triumph. Each word, each gesture was deliberate, a subtle assertion that she was in control, that she had the power now. Throughout the evening, her campaign continued to gain traction online. Mentions, shares, hashtags, real bodies, real victory, spread like wildfire. Clients approached her, seeking collaboration, endorsements, partnerships. She smiled, nodded, and spoke, all while knowing that Damon watched, realizing, perhaps too late, that his arrogance had blinded him. Ariana felt a mixture of satisfaction and caution. She had won in this room, in this moment, but the war was far from over. Damon's presence, though diminished in its power, still lingered like a shadow she had to navigate carefully. She would not be distracted. She would not be baited. She had a son, a life, and a purpose that transcended revenge. Yet the thought of Damon's stunned face, his rare moment of vulnerability, sent a quiet thrill through her. She had risen above, unbroken, beautiful, and powerful. He had underestimated her, as he always had, and now the tables had turned. His arrogance had created the opportunity for her greatest victory. Every smile, every conversation, every handshake was a demonstration of control, a claim over the narrative Damon had once tried to write for her. Ariana's poise became a weapon, her calm confidence a shield, and her work the sword that cut through the remnants of doubt, fear, and abandonment. The night wore on, the gala a blur of elegant dresses, soft music, and murmured conversations. Ariana moved with purpose, allowing her presence to command respect without arrogance. She was an architect of her destiny, every action, every decision a testament to her resilience. Then, just as the gala reached its peak, her phone buzzed. A notification flashed across the screen, and her heart sank for a moment. An anonymous source had posted a video online. The subject, Damon. The content, brutal, unfiltered, mocking her, mocking Gunnar, calling her a trap, and deriding the child she loved. Ariana's fingers tightened around the phone, but instead of panic, a slow, deliberate calm settled over her. She realized the power of this moment. She could react recklessly, or she could leverage it. Every lesson she had learned, every victory she had claimed, every campaign she had crafted taught her one truth. She was always stronger when she acted intentionally. She leaned back slightly, letting the murmurs of the gala swirl around her. Damon was oblivious to what was about to happen. His arrogance had left him blind to the fact that Ariana Wells did not merely survive, she conquered. And now the next move in their ongoing game was entirely in her hands. As Ariana watched the video, a slow, sharp smile curling across her lips, she realized the opportunity in front of her. She could release the footage strategically, dismantling Damon's reputation publicly while cementing her own rise. The night that began as a personal victory was about to transform into a professional triumph that would leave Damon exposed, humiliated, and powerless in a way he had never imagined. Damon Blackwood sat in his sleek, high-rise office, staring at the screens in disbelief. Numbers flashed in red across every chart, every report, every projection. Clients were leaving. Investors were withdrawing. Media headlines mocked his name. The empire he had built, the image he had curated with meticulous pride, was crumbling before his eyes. Each failure felt like a blade, cutting deeper than he had ever known possible. He poured himself another drink, letting the cold liquid burn down his throat, masking the bitter taste of defeat, the hollow ache of humiliation. His arrogance, once an impenetrable armor, had melted away under the weight of exposure. Each sip of alcohol was a temporary escape, a feeble attempt to silence the reality he could no longer deny. Every message, every call, every reminder of the chaos surrounding him felt like a personal attack. But the most unbearable blow was the thought of Ariana Wells. She had risen while he had stumbled, grown while he had fallen, and claimed a life, a reputation, and a power he had once believed belonged to him. The sting of jealousy gnawed at him with a persistence that alcohol could not dull. Finally, after nights of spiraling, he found himself walking into the doors of a rehab center. The pristine halls were sterile, calming, yet humbling. Here, there were no titles, no image, no facade. He was simply Damon Blackwood, a man stripped of pride, confronted by the consequences of his choices. Terry, his AA sponsor, waited with patience and quiet authority. "You have to face it," Terry said gently. "All of it. The man you were, the pain you caused, the truth you've been running from." Damon nodded silently, swallowing the lump in his throat. Each word, each glance was a mirror he could not look away from. Dr. Okafor, his therapist, guided him further. Sessions were long, exhausting, and brutally honest. Damon was forced to confront not just his failures in business, but the deeper wounds he had inflicted, the betrayal, the abandonment, the cruelty toward Ariana and the life he had helped shape, and then discard. Each session left him raw, exposed, and painfully aware of the work ahead. Meanwhile, Ariana Wells thrived. Walsh Collective, her branding agency, was no longer a fledgling dream. It had become a formidable presence in the industry. Her campaign, Real Bodies, Real Victory, had opened doors she had once only imagined. Every pitch, every project, every client meeting became a testament to her resilience, her intelligence, and her unwavering determination. Mornings were sacred. She woke with Gunnar in her arms, his soft hair brushing against her cheek, his tiny hands gripping her fingers. These quiet moments, intimate and tender, reminded her why she had endured every hardship, every betrayal, every sleepless night. He was the reason she fought, the reason she rose, and the reason she built a life so strong that no one could shake it. Ariana balanced the duality of motherhood and empire building with fierce grace. While her days were consumed by strategy sessions, client meetings, and creative planning, she never lost sight of the tender responsibilities that came with raising Gunnar. Bath times, bedtime stories, first words. Each milestone was as vital as a successful pitch or viral campaign. She had learned that true power lay in mastering both worlds. Her agency flourished under her leadership. The team she had nurtured became an extension of her vision. Each employee invested in the authenticity, the mission, the message that Ariana had fought so hard to amplify. They celebrated her victories as if they were their own, and in that unity Ariana found an even deeper sense of fulfillment. And Damon watched from afar, the bitter sting of jealousy and pride colliding in his chest. He saw her everywhere, in magazine covers, in interviews, in articles that praised her brilliance and resilience. Each mention was a reminder that the woman he had discarded was now untouchable by him, that the life he had tried to control had flourished despite him. One morning, Damon's assistant slid a glossy magazine across his desk. He picked it up with trembling fingers, the cover image burning into his mind. Ariana Wells, radiant, confident, powerful, stared back at him. The headline blared in bold letters, "The Woman Who Rose from Betrayal." Damon's chest tightened, a mix of shame, pride, and jealousy clawing at him. His fingers shook as he set the magazine down, a knot of emotion he had long ignored twisting within him. For the first time, he truly felt the weight of loss. Not of wealth, not of status, but of the life, the woman, and the child he had abandoned. He reflected on the nights he had spent drinking, drowning in the illusions of control he once believed he had. He thought of the calls he had ignored, the texts he had deleted, the opportunities he had thrown away while chasing his vanity and image. And now the consequences were undeniable. He was not just losing a company or a reputation, he was losing the chance to redeem himself, to reclaim even a fragment of what mattered most. Terry observed quietly as Damon sat in silence. "You see it now," Terry said, "the impact of your choices. Not just on you, but on everyone around you. Now it's up to you how to move forward." Damon nodded, feeling the first stirrings of accountability. The road ahead would be long, grueling, and humbling, but it was the first step toward transformation. Dr. Okafor guided him further, peeling back layers of denial, teaching him to confront his past honestly. Damon faced the pain he had caused Ariana, the hours of loneliness, the nights she had cried alone. Each acknowledgement was a blow to his ego, yet also a seed of redemption. He realized that real power was not in wealth or dominance, but in accountability, in repairing what he had broken, and in earning the right to be a man of integrity. Meanwhile, Ariana's life continued to rise in sharp contrast to Damon's fall. She had meetings with high-profile clients, brand launches, and creative pitches that required her full focus. Every success reaffirmed her worth, her intelligence, her ability to craft a life from ashes. The balance between motherhood and empire building became her identity, her strength, her fortress. She often caught Gunner's small hand curling around hers during early morning work sessions, his tiny eyes watching her with trust and admiration. Each day reminded her why she had endured the storm, why she had faced the betrayal, and why she had built a life so complete that Damon's interference could no longer touch it. Her team rallied behind her, inspired by her journey. Every campaign they launched carried the heartbeat of her experience, a narrative of resilience, courage, and authenticity. Ariana's voice became a beacon for others, her story a testament to the transformative power of determination. And Damon, sitting in rehab, could not escape the growing evidence of her ascent. He saw her grace, her intelligence, her power, and his own failures became impossible to ignore. He could no longer hide behind excuses, behind arrogance, or behind alcohol. He had been stripped bare, left to confront the man he had become versus the man he needed to be. For the first time, pride and jealousy collided in a way that forced introspection. Damon realized that his path forward would not be easy. Redemption was not given, it was earned. Accountability, humility, and consistent effort would be required to repair not just his own life, but the wounds he had inflicted on Ariana and the son he had abandoned. Ariana, unaware of the depth of Damon's reflection, continued her daily ascent. Every article, every accolade, every client meeting reinforced her confidence. She had survived the worst, she had built something extraordinary, and she had done it all on her terms. Her mornings with Gunner, evenings with Maria, and nights spent strategizing campaigns became her rhythm, her legacy, her triumph. She had learned that true victory was not in revenge, but in thriving despite betrayal. Every small success, every positive outcome, every smile from Gunner reinforced the truth. She was unstoppable. Damon's shadow could never dim the light she had ignited. One morning, as Damon scrolled through his rehab emails, a new headline caught his eye. It wasn't just Ariana's magazine cover this time. Her agency had landed a multi-million-dollar campaign with international acclaim. For the first time, he felt a pang of genuine fear. The woman he had discarded was no longer just succeeding. She was untouchable. And he realized that reclaiming even a fragment of his life would require more than wealth or charm. It would require true transformation from the inside out. Years had passed since the stormy night that had shattered Ariana Wells' world. The scars of betrayal had faded only in memory, but the lessons remained etched in her heart. She had built a life that was unshakable, grounded in resilience and purpose, and yet the echo of Damon Blackwood's presence lingered, a shadow of what had been. Damon had changed. The fall had stripped him bare, forcing him to confront every arrogance, every cruelty, every choice that had led to his downfall. He entered the world with humility, volunteering at a youth center, teaching, mentoring, showing up every day, not for recognition, but because it was the right thing to do. He learned to listen, to guide, to serve. And somewhere in that quiet work, he began to feel a life outside himself, one that didn't revolve around wealth, status, or ego. Gunner Wells, Ariana's son, ran through the park, blissfully unaware of the complicated history that linked his mother and Damon. His laughter carried across the playground, bright and pure, untouched by adult pain or history. He chased balls, swung from jungle gyms, and laughed freely, a living testament to Ariana's resilience and love. Damon watched from a distance, his eyes tracing the boy's every movement. The first time he had come to the park, months ago, he had remained hidden, quietly observing, gauging the situation. He had not approached, he had not intervened. Consistency, he had been told, was the key to trust. So he returned every Saturday, rain or shine, quietly showing up, lending a helping hand when needed, smiling at the children, talking to parents only when necessary. Ariana observed him cautiously from her usual bench, a safe distance away, Gunner playing between them. She did not speak to him. She did not acknowledge him. Trust was earned slowly, cautiously, and Damon had much to prove. She had learned that the world was cruel to those who showed vulnerability too quickly, that forgiveness was not owed, and that protecting her son was the only priority she would never compromise. Each week she watched him from afar, noting the small signs, how he spoke gently to the children, how he laughed without arrogance, how he genuinely cared. She had seen many men change superficially, but she had also seen them revert. This was not superficial. She could sense the difference. Still, she did not let herself hope. Her life had been broken once, and she would never allow it again. Gunner had grown in these years, and he was fearless in the park, running after friends, calling for tag, and laughing with a freedom that reminded Ariana of the innocence she fought to protect. She marveled at how her son had blossomed, a product of love, not of wealth or social expectation. She was proud beyond words, yet wary of what the past might bring. Damon, meanwhile, learned patience in ways he had never known. Weeks turned into months, months into years, and each visit to the park was a silent lesson in humility. He earned the respect of the staff, who had initially regarded him with suspicion, learning to listen more than he spoke, to guide without controlling, to give without expecting. Ariana's career continued its meteoric rise. Walsh Collective had become a powerhouse, her campaigns celebrated internationally, and her voice a beacon for authenticity and empowerment. Yet no amount of success could erase the careful, protective vigilance she maintained around her son. Every smile Damon gave, every kind word he offered, was measured against the memory of past pain. She would not allow history to repeat itself. One bright afternoon, the sun glinting through the park trees, Damon tossed a ball effortlessly to a group of children. His eyes scanned the field, watching their reactions, their laughter, their joy. Gunner, who had been running alongside other children, suddenly paused, his small figure fixated on the man tossing the ball. Recognition, even without knowledge, stirred in the boy. Gunner's little legs propelled him forward, fast and determined, eyes wide with innocent excitement. Damon's hands faltered mid-throw. He froze, the world slowing, the air thick with the weight of a moment he had not anticipated. The boy was running straight toward him, no caution, no hesitation, just pure curiosity and innocence. Ariana's breath caught in her throat. She had seen the moment, yet she could not predict the intensity of the connection forming before her eyes. Her son's laughter, the boy's trust, the innocence that demanded a response, it all pressed down on Damon with a force that no therapy, no humility, no effort could have prepared him for. Damon's chest tightened. He felt a swell of fear and hope entwined. The responsibility, the magnitude, the possibility of connection, all collided in his heart. He was not just a man trying to redeem himself. He was a father standing at the threshold of recognition, of belonging, of accountability. The ball rolled to a stop at his feet, and Gunnar stopped as well, panting, small hands outstretched, the universal gesture of trust. Damon bent slightly, unsure, heart hammering. He had never imagined that this day would come without intervention, without orchestrated introductions, without promises. This was raw, unfiltered, real. Ariana's eyes were wide, her pulse racing. She did not move from the bench. She did not call out. She watched the encounter, knowing the moment carried weight far beyond a simple greeting. The child's innocence forced recognition, demanded honesty, and demanded accountability. Damon could no longer hide. For a moment, silence hung in the air. The boy looked up, eyes shining with curiosity and trust, the kind of trust only a child could give without reservation. Damon's throat tightened. Every misstep, every failure, every cruel word he had ever spoken to Ariana and her child pressed against him with urgency. Redemption was not a concept anymore. It was a choice, embodied in the small, brown-eyed boy standing before him. Gunnar, took a tentative step closer. Damon's hands trembled, not from weakness, but from the weight of the moment, the gravity of the opportunity to show that change was possible, that sincerity could be conveyed without words, through presence, through action. Ariana felt the tide shift. She realized that trust was no longer hypothetical. Damon had shown up, had been consistent, and had endured the path of transformation. But trust was fragile. Redemption was fragile. And yet, in this quiet park, in this fleeting luminous moment, she saw the first glimmer of what could be. The world seemed to hold its breath as father and son regarded each other, separated by circumstance, connected by blood and unspoken potential. Damon had the chance to step into a role he had abandoned. Gunnar had the choice to embrace a connection he had never known. And Ariana, guardian of both, watched with a heart balanced between hope and caution, knowing that the next steps would determine everything. The ball rested still between them. The park buzzed softly with the ambient noise of children playing, leaves rustling, and distant laughter. Time felt suspended. The moment waited with possibility. Every second that passed was a test of courage, trust, and authenticity. Damon slowly extended a hand, not commanding, not expecting, just offering. Gunnar paused, then placed his small hand atop Damon's, sealing a connection that words had yet to define. Ariana's eyes welled with tears, watching the first tangible bridge form between past mistakes and the potential for healing. In that moment, she realized that life had a way of balancing itself. The boy's innocence had forced recognition, compelled action, and created the first true step toward reconciliation. Damon's path to redemption was no longer theoretical. It was unfolding, right before her eyes, measured by consistency, humility, and love he had once taken for granted. As Ariana rose from her bench, ready to approach, Damon looked down at Gunnar, his eyes brimming with emotion. The boy's small, trusting gaze held a silent question, a request for connection, and Damon knew that the next choice he made would either secure his place in Gunnar's life or shatter the fragile hope of redemption forever. The park seemed to hold its breath as Ariana Wells approached her son and Damon. Gunnar's small hand rested in Damon's, his face shining with innocent trust. Ariana's chest tightened with a mixture of pride, caution, and the lingering ache of old wounds. She had endured betrayal, abandonment, and humiliation, and yet, standing here now, she realized that the first bridge between past pain and potential healing was forming right before her eyes. Kenny, Gunner, Damon whispered, his voice trembling as he knelt to be at eye level with the boy. I, I'm your dad. Gunner tilted his head, his small brown eyes curious, unafraid, and somehow knowing. Without hesitation, he leaned forward and hugged Damon, wrapping his tiny arms around a man he had never met but instinctively trusted. Damon froze for a heartbeat, overcome by emotion, then hugged him back tightly, tears welling in his eyes. It was a moment that could not be scripted, a connection forged through blood, loss, and redemption. Ariana watched silently from a short distance, her heart swelling with emotion, yet tempered by the cautious wisdom she had cultivated over years of struggle. She had built a fortress of love, strength, and resilience. No one could breach it easily. And yet, seeing her son and Damon in that embrace stirred an unfamiliar warmth. It was not forgiveness, not yet, but it was acknowledgement. It was progress. Weeks passed, and the dynamics between Damon, Ariana, and Gunnar began to settle into a rhythm. Co-parenting required patience, consistency, and humility, things Damon had learned in the quiet halls of rehab and the bustling playgrounds of volunteer work. Each Saturday he arrived promptly, carrying snacks, balls, and an open heart, never overstepping, never attempting to claim authority where it was not offered. Ariana observed him carefully, noting the changes, the softness in his tone when speaking to Gunnar, the way he knelt to tie shoelaces without condescension, the respect he showed her decisions, and the patience he extended toward her son. It was steady, earned, and real. She began to allow small interactions, questions about Gunnar's day, shared responsibilities, gentle reminders of medical appointments to pass without confrontation. Trust was not instantaneous, but it was growing. Their conversations were measured, businesslike at first. Ariana set the tone firmly, insisting on boundaries. Damon accepted them, understanding that redemption could not be demanded. It had to be demonstrated. He did not flinch when she reminded him of the past, when she listed the times she had been abandoned, the nights she had cried alone, the struggles she had endured. Each reminder was a lesson, a mirror, and a chance for him to prove the authenticity of his transformation. Gunnar, oblivious to the tension of adult history, thrived in this delicate ecosystem. He laughed freely, ran with friends, and sometimes asked Damon to read bedtime stories. The small gestures were monumental victories, moments that tethered Damon to the life he had once discarded and to the son he had finally begun to know. Ariana maintained her independence, her career, and her personal growth. She balanced motherhood and leadership with extraordinary finesse, refusing to allow her life to be disrupted by someone who had once caused her immense pain. She had rebuilt from ashes before, and she would do it again if necessary. Damon's presence was acknowledged, welcomed cautiously, but never assumed. She knew that boundaries were essential to the delicate balance she had achieved. As weeks turned into months, the trio navigated the complexities of co-parenting. Damon learned the subtle rhythms of their lives, Gunnar's bedtime, favorite snacks, temper tantrums, and moments of joy. Ariana recognized the sincerity of his efforts and began to allow herself small moments of relief, small glimpses of what redemption could look like in action. She watched Damon attend parent-teacher conferences, help Gunnar with homework, and teach him playground games with patience and kindness. Each act was evidence, proof that he was learning, growing, and earning the trust he had once squandered. Her heart, once guarded fiercely, began to soften, not toward romance, but toward acknowledgement, toward recognition of effort, and toward the simple human desire for connection and family. The neighborhood, initially skeptical of Damon's presence, began to see the quiet transformation. Parents who had once regarded him with suspicion noticed his consistent presence, the gentle way he spoke to children, and the humility he carried. Slowly, respect replaced doubt, and the social fabric that had been frayed by his past arrogance began to mend. Ariana, careful and deliberate, guided the pace. She allowed Damon to participate, but she maintained control over decisions involving Gunner's welfare, school, and activities. Each negotiation, each interaction was a test, both for Damon and for herself. She would not relinquish the life she had fought to build without seeing proof of integrity. Even in moments of progress, the shadows of the past lingered. Memories of betrayal, nights of solitude, and whispered insults echoed faintly in her mind. Ariana reminded herself daily that trust could be rebuilt, but love and intimacy were not owed. Her heart remained hers, independent and untouchable, while her son's well-being remained her ultimate priority. Damon, aware of every nuance, never faltered. He demonstrated consistency, humility, and accountability in ways that words alone could not convey. He listened more than he spoke, he acted more than he promised, and he allowed Ariana to witness the transformation firsthand. Slowly, she saw that redemption was not a fleeting promise. It was a daily practice, embodied in patience, actions, and unwavering commitment. The co-parenting relationship grew, delicate yet profound. Damon began to earn small privileges, like reading Gunner bedtime stories, helping with homework, and attending family events when invited. Each interaction reinforced his presence as a responsible, caring father. Ariana observed, noted, and silently approved, knowing the child's well-being depended on discernment as much as openness. Through it all, Gunner flourished. He laughed freely, developed friendships, and navigated childhood with confidence. His curiosity extended to Damon naturally, without coercion, and each shared moment became a bridge, connecting past neglect to present growth. The boy's innocence acted as a catalyst for change, forcing Damon to confront himself and rise to the expectations he had long ignored. And yet, just as the delicate balance began to stabilize, the past threatened to intrude. Sienna Vale, the woman Damon had once flaunted publicly, resurfaced. Her presence was not subtle. It carried the weight of threat, manipulation, and a history designed to destabilize. She appeared unexpectedly, a reminder of old temptations, past arrogance, and unfinished conflicts. Ariana recognized the danger immediately. Sienna underestimated her, the woman who had survived betrayal, single motherhood, and the climb to professional success was not one to be easily intimidated. Her defenses, honed by experience, were formidable, and she would protect her son and her life at all costs. Sienna's intrusion created tension, testing the fragile ecosystem Ariana had meticulously built. Damon, confronted with the past in physical form, was challenged to maintain his newfound integrity, to navigate temptation and history without faltering. The stakes had risen. The co-parenting balance was delicate, and the introduction of Sienna threatened to undo the months of trust and progress painstakingly earned. Ariana's response was measured. She did not react impulsively. She did not confront without strategy. Her life, her son, and her agency demanded control, foresight, and precision. She would meet Sienna's challenge with strength, clarity, and authority. This was not a moment for weakness, and she would not allow history to repeat itself. The tension between Damon's past and present, Ariana's vigilance, and Sienna's disruption created a charged atmosphere. The balance between redemption and chaos hung in the air, threatening to tip with every interaction. Ariana, ever observant, prepared to act decisively to protect the life she had rebuilt. Gunner, blissfully unaware of the tension, continued to play, laughing, learning, and growing. His innocence was both a blessing and a responsibility, a motivator for Ariana to maintain vigilance, and a test for Damon to uphold his commitment to integrity. The day stretched into evening, shadows lengthening across the playground. Ariana remained a silent observer, ensuring her son's safety while monitoring the interactions that could threaten the fragile peace. Damon, aware of the stakes, remained steady, measured, demonstrating the growth and humility he had cultivated. As Sienna approached, smiling with calculated charm, Damon instinctively stepped forward. But Ariana's eyes, sharp and unwavering, met his. She knew this was a test, not just for him, but for the life she had built. In that moment, a storm of history, emotion, and power collided, and Ariana realized that the next choice Damon made would determine whether their family could survive this intrusion, or fracture under the weight of past mistakes and new threats. The morning sun painted Solara Beach in soft gold as Ariana Wells adjusted Gunner's little blazer, smoothing the fabric with a mother's meticulous care. The gentle breeze carried salt and possibility, a reminder that life, after storms, could still be breathtaking. Gunner's small hand slipped into hers, his brown eyes sparkling with excitement, oblivious to the weight of history that had led to this moment. Ariana's heart swelled as she watched him balance confidently on the sandy path toward the stage set for the school recital. She had raised him with courage, with love, and with an unyielding belief in his potential. Every tear she had shed, every sleepless night, every hardship had built the foundation for this boy who now walked with pride, innocence, and joy. Damon stood nearby, a quiet presence, yet unmistakable. He had walked a long, hard path through arrogance, betrayal, loss, and self-destruction, only to arrive at a place of genuine redemption. His eyes, softened by humility and experience, followed Gunner with a father's pride. He had earned the right to be here, not by entitlement, but through consistent action, through the courage to confront his past and change. Ariana observed him from the side, a mix of wariness and acknowledgement in her gaze. She had learned long ago that forgiveness was not absolute, that trust was earned, and that redemption was proven through deeds, not words. Yet, seeing Damon interact with Gunner, the patience in his voice, the gentle guidance in his hands, she felt a quiet relief. Her son was safe, loved, and unconditionally embraced. The recital began, and children performed songs and dances, filling the open-air venue with laughter, applause, and tiny triumphs. Gunner took the stage with ease, his voice ringing clear and confident, each note a symbol of the resilience Ariana had nurtured. She clutched the edge of the bench, pride and tears welling in her eyes. This was more than a performance. It was proof of survival, of growth, and of love that endured beyond betrayal. Damon's hand rested lightly on Ariana's shoulder, a gesture of solidarity and respect. Neither of them spoke. Words were unnecessary. The journey had been defined not by conversation, but by actions, by consistency, sacrifice, and quiet devotion. Ariana's gaze met Damon's briefly, and they shared an unspoken acknowledgement. They had endured, transformed, and arrived at a place of mutual respect and peace. After the recital, children hugged parents, teachers beamed, and the air buzzed with joy. Gunner ran to Ariana, wrapping his arms around her waist, laughter spilling freely. Damon followed, and the boy's hands reached for him again, instinctively, confidently. Ariana's eyes softened, watching the father-son bond flourish without drama, without coercion. This was healthy, measured, and entirely earned. Ariana's career, Walsh Collective, had reached heights that even she had once thought unattainable. Major international campaigns hailed her authenticity, her commitment to real bodies, real victory, and her unwavering dedication to empowering women. Clients sought her vision, journalists sought her insight, and her influence rippled across industries. Yet, she never let success define her. Her worth was intrinsic, resilient, and unshakable. Damon, too, had found a life of fulfillment. Sober, empathetic, and grounded, he had established a mentorship program for at-risk youth, transforming his once self-centered ambition into service. Love had found him cautiously in the form of a partner who saw him wholly, past mistakes and all. He had discovered joy not in possession or status, but in connection, accountability, and purpose. Ariana and Damon had both discovered love again, separately, and each relationship was built on transparency, respect, and healing. The past's toxic bonds were finally dissolved, replaced by gratitude for lessons learned and clarity about boundaries. Gunnar thrived in this environment, secure in the love of two parents who had earned their places in his life. As the family gathered at the edge of the beach, the sun descending into a soft amber glow, Ariana looked out over the water. She felt the wind against her face, the sand beneath her feet, and the warmth of her son beside her. Every moment of struggle, every betrayal, every painful night had led her here. She had not sought revenge. She had not needed reconciliation. She had sought and built a life of authentic power, love, and freedom. Damon approached, walking beside her silently, a quiet acknowledgement passing between them. Their history was deep and complicated, but it had shaped them both. The weight of past mistakes hung lightly, transformed into lessons that guided their present choices. Ariana's glance conveyed both respect and caution. She had learned that true victory was measured not by others' acknowledgement, but by the strength, integrity, and love one cultivated personally. Gunnar ran ahead, calling out to friends, his laughter harmonizing with the waves. Ariana smiled, pressing a hand over her heart. She whispered softly, more to herself than anyone else, "Our worth is never defined by those who left us behind. It's ours, priceless and unbreakable." The words echoed in the wind, a mantra forged from years of survival, struggle, and triumph. Damon, listening, felt a quiet awe. He had observed her journey from distance to prominence, from despair to empowerment. He recognized that Ariana's life was not a product of him, but of her own indomitable will. He felt pride, humility, and gratitude that he had been allowed a place, not to control, but to participate responsibly in the life of their son. The beach around them was alive with motion, families, children, and sun-kissed laughter. But Ariana and Damon existed in a quiet bubble of reflection. The past's turbulence had given way to measured calm. Every scar, every heartbreak, every lesson had coalesced into a life of substance and meaning. They walked together, side by side, yet independently, symbolic of their journey. Not lovers reunited, but co-parents, allies, and survivors who had conquered storms, transformed their lives, and built legacies of resilience. Gunnar skipped ahead, unaware of the nuanced power dynamics that had shaped this moment, but fully aware of the love surrounding him. Ariana paused, gazing at the horizon. The waves lapped rhythmically, a soothing reminder that life moved forward, relentless yet beautiful. She breathed deeply, feeling the enormity of what she had achieved. She had raised a remarkable child, built an empire, and protected her heart from those who had once sought to diminish it. Her worth was intact, radiating, undeniable. Damon watched her, silently acknowledging her triumph. He had not caused it, nor could he claim it. All he could do was witness, support, and continue his journey as a father and man committed to integrity. Together they formed a balanced triangle of trust, love, and responsibility, one that would guide Gunnar's life with strength and stability. As the sun dipped lower, painting the sky in streaks of orange, and Violet Ariana felt the culmination of every choice, every battle, and every tear she had shed. The fortress she had built was unbreachable, her achievements luminous, and her family, though unconventional, was complete in its authenticity and love. She smiled at Gunnar, brushing a strand of hair from his face. Damon, standing respectfully, nodded. No words were necessary. The legacy they were creating was not built on drama or reconciliation, but on consistent love, earned respect, and unwavering dedication. The evening continued with laughter, music, and small victories shared between parent and child. Ariana allowed herself moments of quiet reflection, understanding that the past had shaped her, but it did not define her. She was free, triumphant, and complete, a living testament to resilience and self-worth. As Ariana watched Gunnar run along the shoreline, a gentle breeze carrying the scent of the ocean, she realized life's storms were never truly over. But now she had learned how to stand unwavering, how to protect love, and how to build a legacy no one could ever take. And somewhere in the distance, a new opportunity glimmered on the horizon, a chance to redefine not just herself, but the world she was shaping, with Gunnar and her unwavering strength by her side.